Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I appreciate you coming by. And if you're new to the channel, I really appreciate you checking it out. I try to do things a little bit differently. I try to show you these locations of these encounters. There's no other channel on YouTube that specializes in Bigfoot Sasquatch stories that show you the locations like I do. So I hope I bring a new added value to your viewing experience. Today what we have is two encounters, one from a Canadian reservist up in Canada while he was on a training mission, and another one from a gentleman named Greg in Pennsylvania when he was a child. I'm going to show you these locations and let's get to it. This is where Josh's encounter happened. He said about 40 clicks north of North Bay Base. Right here is North Bay Base. And he would not give me specific location coordinates because this is a military exercise that they were doing. But I can tell you it's going to be right in this area right here. Now that's as best as I'm going to tell you. He's asked me not to be so specific with it, but I'm going to show you that it's probably right in this area somewhere, and that's as specific as I'm going to give you guys. I hope you guys understand why. It's a military exercise location, so they don't want to give out the precise locations. I mean, you can see towns around here and roads and things like that, but I'm not going to show you exactly where it happened. It happened in this general area, and that's where we're going to leave it. Hope you guys understand that, but that's all I'm going to give you as far as location on this story, because when the viewers send in their encounters and they ask me not to give their names or give a location or something like that, I'm definitely going to honor that. They're trusting me with their story. They're trusting me to not get them in trouble, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to show you this location exactly, and that's what it is. I'm sorry guys, but that's how it's got to be with this video, this part of this video. The other one that I'm going to show you from Greg, now I can show you the exact location, so you guys stick with me. Let's get to it. Viewer Bigfoot encounter story, this time from a gentleman that was in the Canadian Reserves in an artillery division. We are going to call him Josh. He wants to remain anonymous. We're just going to use the name Josh to describe this gentleman. Here is my encounter, says Josh. When I was 18 in the Canadian Reserves doing Arctic indoctrination courses, I saw something I was not prepared to see. I believe it was January 20th, 1986. We were deep in the woods of northern Ontario. I was in an artillery regiment and I was put on duty of watching the ammo and other supplies for a period of time during the night. Around 2 a.m. in the morning, I heard something going through one of the tents and making all kinds of noises like an animal going through supplies in one of the tents. I was scared and unarmed at the time, but felt compelled to find out who or what was making noise in one of the supply tents. As I approached the tent, it practically came down. The tent went right and left and up and down like multiple people were in it trying to collapse the tent. I rushed in only to find something had torn its way through the back and I could hear it running ahead of me. Rather than go around a table that was in the way and then through the hole the animal made, I moved back out of the tent and went around it to the right where there was no other tents. I didn't want to get trapped unarmed between this tent and the tent to the left or the other tents behind me. I wanted lots of open ground and have clear sight line of any danger. I was alone and a little over 100 yards from our camp at the bottom of a hill. We were all using this tall hill and then the tree line combined with 100 yards of distance to prevent being killed by any ordnance that may go off. Being much higher and far back enough with thick woods is pretty good protection. So I have deep woods behind me, and this thing now is running fast towards the wood line on the other side of the clearing we placed the tents. That is when I saw it. A totally black form, too tall to be a human, too fast to be a black bear running bipedally. It was doing around 40 to 50 kilometers an hour through 4 feet of snow. I saw it run into the tree line and then go left at about 35 yards in and then stop dead in its tracks. It then turned, and it appeared to me like it was in slow motion. The movement was that of slow and deliberate. It was a threatening turn and posture. It then growled. This thing is at least 70 yards or more from me, and the growl felt like it was maybe 30 feet in front of me. The projection of the growl made me almost feel it in the air pressure. When you fire off artillery, you feel the shock wave in your organs, a thrilling feeling. This thing's voice did a lower version of that, like when I fired a .50 caliber and felt the shock in my body. The only thing I can describe this growl as is like a lion or tiger's rolling growl. I've hunted my whole life since age 9 with my family. I've never heard a bear native to Canada make that growl like a great cat. And I've seen cougars both in Manitoba and northern Ontario where they are actually starting to make a comeback despite naysayers. I've seen cougars while deer hunting. Cougars did not make a tiger-like growl or a leopard-like growl. Things move back to areas they once inhabited. So do Bigfoot, apparently. I believe the Patterson film is real because back in the late 1980s, I saw something I was not prepared to see. I saw a male Bigfoot that in every single way but size was identical to Patty. It had the same gait, the same slouched posture, the same hair length, and near black color. However, the one I saw had 0 body fat. The thing was fit. More so, it floated across the landscape as Patty does in her video. I couldn't personally do more than a mile an hour in the 4 feet of packed snow. That animal was doing car speeds through with 0 effort. This thing was doing Olympic world record speed and in waist-high snow. The Bigfoot I saw was a solid 9 feet to 12 feet tall. It was as tall as a grizzly on his hind legs and ran about as fast as a grizzly does on all 4s. This thing was so big and heavy, nothing was going to hunt it. Not even a grizzly, I imagine. I would guess the weight at about male grizzly bear weight, so well over 1,000 pounds. Probably closer to 2,000 pounds. These things are big up here. Colder environments, bigger, heavy animals. We see this in all animals this far north, and this thing is no exception to that rule. Its eyes were amber in the tree line. I saw them shine without any light being shown on them. They were huge and saucer-like. I could tell they were the size of tennis balls by the size of the eye shine. I reported the incident to a chief warrant officer, telling him we had a big black bear raid one of the tents. He put out more guards and armed us with live ammo. The next night I heard shots. First 4 shots in quick succession, and then another 5 shots that were clearly someone aiming every shot, as they were about 2 to 3 seconds apart. It was a 9mm from what I could tell. The same chief warrant officer from the night before ran up to us and said, "Get down there with guns. Something is raiding the tents." We went down and saw the black form stand up and someone shouted, "Bear!" and the shooting started. We had FNC1 rifles in 7.62 by 51mm. You Americans will recognize it as a variation of the FAL rifle. It was pitch black with only 2 of us with flashlights. It was also very foggy. It had warmed up earlier in the day and it caused snow to melt, and this fog had developed from that. I think it was 11 p.m. or just slightly after when the shots rang out. The warrant had a Browning high-power 9mm with a 13-shot magazine in hand, and he was loading the mag back up to full capacity. Our FNs had 20-round magazines. As soon as the first round left the soldier's barrel, this thing took off. It ran so fast, I don't think one of us got a shot on target. It was dark, foggy, and this thing was doing a solid 50 kilometers an hour and was running away from us at an angle. More so, it wasn't running in a straight line. It was doing what any of us would call zigzagging. What bear is smart enough to do that? The first day when I went into the tent, I found every supply in there pilfered, torn apart, and scattered like high winds had blown through there and spread everything around. The hole in the back of the tent was a singular cut with frayed individual strings hanging down off the sides of the cut. I've since been fascinated by the Dyatlov Pass incident in Siberia since then, as it's my belief those poor individuals probably had a similar tent encounter that played out much differently than my own. At first, the warrant officer blamed me for cutting the tent with a knife, then raging on stuff to vent. Then he saw the huge cans of beans and the other stuff and the huge footprints. They were about 18 to 20 inches long. I have a size 14 foot, and they were much, much bigger than my foot. The warrant officer said they were large because the bear was dragging his back feet through the front feet's prints, making them look like giant prints. The beast had torn open all the toilet paper out of the wrappers and boxes, and it looked like it went completely nuts on the toilet paper and just about everything else in that tent. I found dozens of yards of unspooled and torn apart toilet paper all over the tent. Dozens of rolls, all torn and unspooled all over the place. We later found several large cans of beans dented a few feet away, lying at the base of a pickaxe. A couple more of the cans had been punctured by what we believed was the pointy end of the pick. The pick end clearly looked like it had baked bean sauce all over it. We used these pickaxes to dig in the artillery gun trails, and those were our extra picks in case any of the picks by the guns crews broke on use. It used the pointy part of the pick to open up the 2 cans of beans, and it looked like much of the contents had been eaten, as we didn't find enough food on the ground to fill the difference of the voids in the cans that it did with this. Members of our own team watching that night were later told that the bear, quote unquote, had chewed open cans and eaten beans and other stuff it was able to get into. So be vigilant, as an animal that succeeds in getting food will come back again and again. This misdirection was believed by all in our regiment, but all of us that were involved in the 2 nights of disturbances, we knew better, and we were staying quiet about it. Later that evening, the warrant officer came up to me, calling me by my last name, and said, "That was no bear you saw, was it?" I looked at him and I said, "I might be below your rank, Chief Warrant, but I'm not stupid. If I reported that, and I'm instantly on a bus out of here with no possibility of a future working for any part of our government." He smiled and he said, "Smart boy." Then told me, "I did not see that either, son. This conversation never happened." He smiled and we never mentioned a thing about it. Later, another friend came up to me and said, "Did you see that?" I said, "No, and neither did you. We're on orders." And he said, like I'd be stupid enough to say a word of this officially. He said others saw it. They were saying the same thing. We were all on the same page. I've never even told my wife to this day about this event. However, I feel compelled now that I am an old man that it must be told. People have to know the truth. They are out there. I've personally seen one twice. They aren't friendly, but they also aren't us. Humans are far more dangerous, and I got the feeling it knew this. When alone, they will escape before they will attack a person. I would not like to see the odds stacked in their favor for numbers. I fear a different version plays out when they are 3 versus 1 of us. They know our species is a cancer. They know what powers we have to kill. I got the feeling they want to be left alone because they know no life for them can exist with us being part of their society. They're smart to directly avoid us, yet they rummage through our stuff. Go figure. Josh. So there you guys go. There's Josh's encounter when he was in the Canadian Reserve Artillery Unit up in northern Canada. What do you guys think about that story? I really do appreciate you sending that in, Josh. And if anybody else has any encounter stories they'd like to send in, please feel free to email me at willstarbigfoot@aol.com, and I will do my best to make a video of your account if that's what you would like. All right, next is Greg from Pennsylvania. Now, Greg had his encounter when he was a young boy, and he sent this in to me to share with all of you guys. So we really do appreciate you sending it in, Greg. Let me go ahead and show you this location, and we will get right to his story. Okay, so this is the area where Greg had his encounter with the Bigfoot in the tent. I just wanted to show you the location, so when I'm telling you guys the story, you guys can follow along and picture in your head where this occurred and all that good stuff. You guys see the trees right there. You see the stream going through there. He was in this field right here where it's like a half of a heart that looks kind of brown, or half a circle, I guess you could say. That's where their tent was. So let's go ahead and get into this story. How about it? Okay, now that I've showed you the location of Greg's encounter, let me go ahead and get into this story. My name is Greg, and way back in the 70s, 74 I believe, I was a 9-year-old camping in a field in a tent with my brother, 12 years old, and our 2 cousins, 6 and 12, on my aunt's farm near Indiana, Pennsylvania, between the towns of Plumville and Puxatawny, home, of course, of Groundhog Phil. It's at the end of a road by South Elkin in what's known as South Mahoning Township, Pennsylvania. The home was actually adjacent to a couple farms where my aunt did some business with the owners of the same, but we simply referred to her home as kids as in, we're going up to Aunt V's farm. We often went over towards the Wagner farm, riding dirt bikes, and towards another farm area close to a small stream just north of my aunt's home. She had a pond at the end of this road, which was stocked with catfish, which we would fish for, but it now seems to be completely filled with green algae. The encounter took place in a field just north of the home and pond owned by the Wagners, which was used as a Christmas tree farm, and by the looks of it, still is. Early one morning, say 20 minutes before sunup, I heard rustling in the woods behind our tent. Then I see a large, hairy arm and hand reach in through the open mesh around the window, making a grabbing gesture. My youngest cousin gasped, at which point the hand pulled back, and I said to myself, "That's the hand of a gorilla!" Then asked myself, what's a gorilla doing out of the zoo? Near a zoo was in Pittsburgh, many miles south. Whatever it was, I heard it head back to the tree line. As soon as the sun came up, we awoke our brothers, whom thought it was a bear. "But bears don't have hands," I exclaimed. After we poked our heads out of the tent, we saw a wide path through the grass cut behind our tent. My brothers said, whatever it was pretty big. We then ran back to tell our parents and aunt, whom of course did not believe us. Well, sometime later that summer, an elderly couple in the area were walking their dog, who was chased off by a large, hairy ape, according to the couple. When the dog didn't return, they called police, whom noticed large footprints. They in turn called a local anthropologist, who came out and made a cast. This was held up for a local news broadcast, which my parents and I were watching. I said, "Look, Ma, they call that a Bigfoot. That's what I saw, a Bigfoot." My mother's jaw dropped, and all my father said was, "You boys aren't going camping there again." This had stuck with me all my life. Now I have time on my hands since my girlfriend passed away from cancer, and I spend it looking for the big guy. Recently, last month, I was in Ohio and spent time looking in Salt Fork State Park and got to meet the head naturalist there and his friend, whom works in the hospital like me. I'm a laser technician. I am between jobs and may relocate, so I'm using this time to go to places like Missouri and Oklahoma, where, as you know, many sightings have occurred. Interesting enough, a few years ago, I met Dave from Missing 411 fame at a conference and told him the tale I told you above. He in turn told me that back in that time, Pennsylvania had more missing children from the woods than any other state, possibly to this day. I sometimes wonder if I almost would have been one of them. Well, keep up the good work on your channel, and if you ever need to contact me or would like to get together for a woods walk in Ohio some afternoon, please feel free to contact me. All the best, brother. Greg. Alright, so there you guys have it. 2 stories, one from military reservist in Canada and one from Greg in Pennsylvania. Now both of them had tent encounters, so imagine that. Well, I guess Josh wasn't in a tent at the time, but it happened in a tent, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, those are 2 great encounters sent in by viewers, and if you guys would like me to read your stories on my channel, please feel free to email me at WILLSTARBigfoot@AOL.com. And if you guys like these stories, you guys can click on this playlist right here, and you can definitely watch some other videos. Or click on this playlist right here. Either one of those two. One is a classic Bigfoot encounters, and one is more recent Bigfoot encounters. So that's where we're going to leave it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you want some merchandise or be a Patreon member, all the links are down in the description. Until next time, remember guys, where there is a Willstar, there is a way. And we will talk to you guys later. Take care.